All right, so I just about had a heart attack. I had left for a little while. I don't know, maybe 30 minutes or so. Closed the door up and everything. Well, I just pulled the door wide open, and a black snake fell. He was evidently curled up right here. Hey everybody, welcome back to Grazing Nail Makers. My name's Zeb, and we are back on the new homestead. We're gonna get down here and try to get in around this well house and figure out what's going on with our water here. I did get in there the other day and open the valve right at the well, and there is a whole lot of pressure, and we got plenty of flow. So we got something going on with the lines that lead up to the house, so I got to figure that out. But we're going to try to get in here today and just clean up around this, get some of the vines and tree limbs off of this well house here, so that we can work a little bit easier in here, and it's just not so snaky and, you know, dirty and stuff. We're going to try to get this all cleaned out today. Massive. I'm not quite sure what kind of tree this is. If you know, let me know in the comments. But look at the sap bleeding from where the bush axe cut into the bark. It's just oozing out everywhere. So I'm kind of curious to know what kind of tree that is. I'll have to look it up, or one of y'all can let me know what type of tree that is. Pretty neat how that thing is bleeding though. Good morning everybody. It's the next morning here. We didn't get a whole lot done yesterday, but we're back down here at the well house this morning, real early morning, and it is cold. It's probably the coldest morning that we've had all year. We are going to try to get down here and finish cleaning up around this well house and get it cleaned out so I can start working on the water. This morning, since it's so cold, we've got this old brush pile that's sitting right here close to the pump house. And we're going to try to burn this thing, one, to get a little bit of heat so I'm not so cold, and two, just to get rid of it, because I'd like to clean this whole little area up right here just so we can get down to the pump house a little bit easier. So we're going to get this thing hopefully started and get a little bit warmer. All right, so I'm thinking that I really just want to cut this whole tree down, because I want to do some work to this old shed one day. I want to build some lean-tos off the side, and just to make like some little tool sheds and stuff. So this tree's got to come down, so I think we're just gonna go ahead and cut it off. And that's what I figured would happen. Alright everybody, so we're making pretty good progress here. We've only been going at this about 2 hours. And we've got everything cleaned up around this big walnut tree. And everything's burning pretty good on the brush pile here. Some of this last tree that I just took down it's going to take a while for it to burn just because it's kind of spread out everywhere. But I know the sun's bright, but that's kind of what it's looking like so far. It's cleaned up a whole bunch. So we're just going to kind of work our way around the pump house and at least get all the vines pulled off of it so it just looks a little bit nicer. So I know it's hard for y'all to see in here, but there's a bunch of junk laying on the floor and just a bunch of trash and different things. So we're gonna get it all packed up in a trash bag and hauled off, hopefully. So I told y'all we was having water problems up at the house with not enough pressure and low flow. But coming out right here at the pump, we have plenty of pressure and water flow. But the water also stinks really bad, like something dead, like a dead animal or something. And I'm pretty sure I just figured out why it stinks. There's a hole in the side of the casing that a small dog could get in. So I'm sure there's several rats and snakes and everything else down in there that's dead. So it's not a big problem. I was planning on redoing all this anyways and taking the cap off and cleaning the well out. And I want to see how deep it is too. So we kind of figured something might have hadn't gotten down in there and died. But that just kind of reaffirms my suspicion. I'm sure something has fell off in there and that's why the water stinks pretty bad. So I want to try to get the rest of this cleaned out, and I'd like to try to maybe pressure wash in here if I can. And then we'll rip all this stuff out and redo it all. All right, so I just about had a heart attack. I had left for a little while. I don't know, maybe 30 minutes or so. Closed the door up and everything. Well, I just pulled the door wide open and a black snake fell. He was evidently curled up right here. He wasn't real big, but he about fell right on my head, so it kind of scared me a little bit. He slithered back in here. We're gonna see if we can find him. For y'all that don't know, that is our dog Xena. She's a full-blooded German Shepherd female. Okay, so back to the well house. Went right back in here. But I don't see him nowhere. Might have went back out that hole there. So that's something we're definitely going to fix. Patch these holes in here once I get this pressure washing cleaned, and we've got to change out, or we got to reconfigure all this. Earlier I had hooked the hose pipe up to here and just turned the pump on and let it pump for about 15 or 20 minutes and moved the cap over so that I could see down in the well. And we actually, I don't know if y'all can see that or not. Let me see if I can move this cap over just a little bit more. There we go. Now maybe we can see down in there a little bit better. Out, out, out. Good girl. So we turned the pump on earlier and it has pumped the well way down. Actually so far that the pump itself was out of the water, so I had to turn the breaker off. It's right there. So the big problem here is the well isn't recovering, meaning it's not filling back up with water. It has a little bit, maybe it might have risen a foot in the past 2 hours. So that's not enough water supply to sustain a family of 4, you know, livestock or anything else we want to do. So I went to the house real quick and I got a 100-foot tape measure and an old piece of chain that I washed off real well. I've used this before to drop down into wells to measure them to see how deep they are. So we're just gonna clip this carabiner on here, and it's got this little slide lock that locks it to where it can't open, so we can't lose it. We're gonna drop this down in here and just see how deep the well is and figure out our next plans from there. All right, so we're just gonna drop this down in here where we can see, hopefully. So right now the water level from the top of the casing from the top of the casing to the top of the water is 15 feet, 16 feet. And to the bottom is about 22.5 feet from the top of the casing. So definitely a very shallow well. We might have some problems with that. I'm concerned a little bit since the well isn't nearly as deep as what I figured it would be. You know, these bored wells are usually shallow, but they can bore these up to, I think, 80 feet. I think 80 feet's the deepest that they can bore a well, and bored wells are pretty much obsolete. And at least in this part of the U.S., people don't really put in bored wells anymore. They're too much of a liability, an issue. You know, you can fall down in there, drown, and die. And you can only bore them but so deep. So most people put in a 6-inch drilled well nowadays. But I did figure that the well would have been a little bit deeper than it is. So I'm gonna have to find somebody that works on wells and knows a whole lot more than I do about it, and try to figure out something else. And you know, we may wind up having to drill another well and just use this one for, you know, gardening and irrigation and stuff like that. The other concern I have is, since it's so shallow, this is considered surface water, even though it's, you know, 20 feet underneath the ground. But it's considered surface water, and a lot of the runoff water, when we get a big heavy rain, can get contaminants in this well. So there's probably bacteria. There's probably not E. coli because it is filtered some, and the casing looks good all the way down. There's no cracks or anything in the casing, but you know, there's probably some total chloroform in there. I am going to have this tested. I want to pump it out, completely pump it out, and you know, maybe clean the bottom out a little bit. There's supposed to be gravel in the bottom, but when I dropped that chain down in there, it just felt like a lot of silt. So it may have been deeper, you know, whenever this well was put in. I'm sure it was, you know, 1965 or 66 when the house was built. The house was built in 65, so I'm sure it was done right around that time. but you know, it could have been a little bit deeper. Maybe it might have been 30 or 35 feet, and over the years it's filled up a little bit. So definitely a lot of concerns when it comes to the water here. So we've kind of switched gears from working inside the house to getting the water situated here, because well, we can't live in the house if there's no water, and the septic needs some work done as well. So now that it's getting a little bit cooler outside, I've kind of switched gears from working inside the house to I wanted to focus on, for one, finding out what we just found out, that you know, the well's not really that deep and there's some issues going on with it. So I wanted to get this stuff figured out as soon as possible, just so I can kind of set some plans in motion and figure out what we're going to do about this situation. And the septic also needs some work. For one, I have no idea where the septic is. The county that we live in can't find any records on it from the past, and I've got a general idea from the previous landowners and where the drain line goes through the foundation, underneath the foundation of the house. I've kind of got a general idea of where in the yard it could be. So it's old cast iron pipe, so we're probably gonna dig that up and replace it with some 4-inch PVC. So just some things that we needed to get done and figured out so that we can start the process of this while we're also working on other things inside the house. We can kind of be covering multiple projects at one time. So we got as much done as we could for now. I'm gonna have to make some phone calls, and you know, if any of y'all have any suggestions or anything that y'all recommend, or you know, maybe some of y'all have dealt with this in the past, you know, please give me some advice. The house that we live in now had a bored well, but it was not being used, and it was actually a little bit deeper than this one. And I did have that water tested, and it had some total chloroform and a little bit of bacteria in it, but no E. coli. So I'm kind of expecting this one to be the same way. So, but if y'all have any suggestions or, you know, any advice for me, please let me know in the comments. I'd greatly appreciate it. But that's going to be all for this video. Appreciate y'all watching. Hopefully our little snake friend doesn't come back. I need to shove these holes full of something. But we'll see y'all in the next one.